The town of Pullman has been a landmark for more than a century. Construction began in 1880 on this first American model industrial town. Pullman offered an alternative to the unregulated growth many cities experienced during the mid-1800s. It was a time of dramatic change for the nation as industry expanded, causing a flow of people from farms and small towns to cities. Immigration even further swelled the urban population. Chicago could not keep pace with the dramatic increase of its population. Such serious problems as poor sanitation and overcrowding demanded solutions, especially where factory workers and their families often lived in cramped, filthy, and disadvantaged conditions. Laborers of all ages, including the very young, took their places in the factories and mills as workers in this era of unchecked industrial expansion. This was Chicago when George Mortimer Pullman arrived in 1859. He moved here after securing a contract to raise a downtown hotel, the 5-story Madison House. George Pullman and his partners were soon bidding on jobs to raise entire blocks from the downtown area 5 to 8 feet out of the mud. Pullman came to Chicago by rail. The trip was uncomfortable and accommodations were primitive. Using capital from his numerous building contracts and a brief but successful venture in Colorado mining, Pullman began work on customizing a variety of rail cars. By the mid-1860s, he achieved his goals with the construction of a passenger car known as the Pioneer. It was not an immediate success. It was taller, wider, and heavier than other passenger cars. Resistance to it would be overcome only after the car was included in the train bearing the body of the assassinated president, Abraham Lincoln, from Chicago to Springfield. Public response was quick and favorable, forcing other rail lines to accommodate the larger cars. Pullman cars soon became a feature on many trains, although they cost 5 times more to build. Pullman's arrangements with various railroads required passengers to pay a surcharge to enjoy riding in comfort. Rail travel was revolutionized. In 1867, George M. Pullman founded the Pullman's Palace Car Company, and soon the word Pullman became a synonym for excellence. The company did more than build cars. It maintained ownership, hired and trained the staff, and set the standards for service to passengers. As time passed, the company began to produce a wide range of railroad cars. The company's headquarters on Michigan Avenue and Pullman's own mansion along fashionable Prairie Avenue reflected the standards he required in the design of the palace cars. What set Pullman apart from most American industrialists was the way he invested the financial resources of his company. Pullman decided to build a model industrial town that would be free from all the ills of existing cities. His town would provide the amenities for safe and productive life. In 1879, he asked 26-year-old architect Solon Beeman and his partner, landscape architect Nathan Barrett, to design this project. They were to plan a complex large enough to accommodate the company's expansion and adjacent to it, an entire town. In association with Benezet Williams, an engineer, plans and drawings were completed. By spring of 1881, the town was operational. Most building materials were produced by the company. Clay from nearby Lake Calumet was used for the common brick. Lumber from the heaviest beams to the most detailed interior trim were sawn and milled by Pullman employees. The clock tower dominated the vast plant. To power the machinery, Pullman purchased the great 2,400 horsepower Corliss engine, one of the marvels of the Centennial Exposition in Philadelphia. The steam plant served a dual purpose, powering the engine and heating the public buildings and executive housing. For fire protection, a water tower was built, with a 500,000-gallon tank on top and a sewage holding tank in its foundation. The sewage was pumped to Pullman's vegetable farm, several miles to the south. A gasworks served both industrial and residential needs. Pullman's employees, the people for whom the town was home, extended from executive and office workers to foremen, skilled craftsmen, and laborers. Superior work conditions and safety measures, unique for the time, were all a part of Pullman's idea. Safe and satisfied workers would be productive employees and would in turn increase profits for the company. company agents recruited skilled craftsmen from the US and Europe. They stressed the extraordinary features of the town, its park-like settings, and facilities undreamed of by working people. New employees began to arrive at the well-landscaped railroad station. The arcade building dominated the newcomers' view of Pullman. The first 2 floors contained spaces rented to private businesses. The upper floors contained a library and a 1,000-seat theater. The glass roof arcade was one of the first enclosed shopping malls. A bank provided for the financial needs of the company, local businesses, and citizens. The company paid its employees in cash, not script, and they were encouraged to save. The town's first church, set at the end of the park, was intended to inspire worship. It clearly focused eye and mind on values that encouraged stability. Arcade Park was the central feature in both location and in making Pullman a pleasant place to live. The elegant Hotel Florence completed the northern edge of the park. Here, Pullman himself maintained a suite. The hotel offered first-class accommodations for businessmen and visitors drawn from all around the world. The Hotel Florence had the only bar in town. Mr. Pullman was adamant about keeping what he called such baneful elements out of the rest of the town. The original Market Hall was destroyed by fire in 1892. The second Market Hall, along with adjacent townhouses and colonnaded apartment houses, were completed in 1893. A gymnasium and meeting halls were housed in the upper level. During the Columbian Exposition, these unique residences provided additional guest accommodations for the many company visitors. The stable building housed both private and commercial horses, and also the fire department and telegraph office. The character of Pullman was shaped by the wide variety of housing. Elegant 2- and 3-story row houses, apartments, and boarding houses for single men. Regardless of which dwelling a family could afford, there was excellent natural lighting, good ventilation, and a rarity for the time, indoor plumbing. The company maintained the lawns, picked up the trash, and all were part of the rental fee. The first house was occupied on January 1st, 1881. Pullman would soon be home to 12,000 people. The school building was the most advanced possible. Well-trained teachers supervised children throughout their grammar school education. The adult evening classes encouraged immigrants to improve their skills. The front porch became a part of the regular living space, a place to sit and chat with neighbors. Activities organized under company sponsorships included social clubs, amateur musical and theater organizations, and athletics. The company's marching band became a national recognition. A grandstand and boathouse were built on an island in Lake Calumet. The success of the town was evident through an increasing number of visitors. The goals and accomplishments of Mr. Pullman and his enterprises were recognized by the Prague International Hygienic Pharmaceutical Exposition in 1896, when they declared Pullman the world's most perfect town. Pullman's vast industrial enterprise could not escape the turmoil of the emerging industrial society. By 1893, the company and the town were impacted by the worst economic depression the U.S. and the world had ever faced. The demand for new rail cars declined dramatically, and Pullman responded by reducing hours and wages of his workers, but the rents charged for housing remained constant. Company investments in the town were expected to be profitable. The challenges of managing both the company and town during the Great Recession brought on conflicts and the strike of 1894. The rail strike of 1894 caused many to question the idea that Pullman had built the perfect town. Although no violence occurred at Pullman and no tenants were evicted during the strike, Pullman was not able to turn public opinion in his favor. While Pullman's Palace Car Company survived the strike, George M. Pullman suffered a fatal heart attack in October 1897. In 1898, a ruling by the Illinois Supreme Court required the company to sell its non-industrial properties in the town of Pullman. This action started a 9-year transformation from company ownership, operation, and maintenance of streets, yards, parks, and buildings. Many residents purchased the homes they had formerly rented. Even though the town that Pullman envisioned would be vastly changed, the human community remained stable. Pullman's architectural plans proved its worth, and the town entered into a new era. Pullman survived as a neighborhood. After the Second World War, the town began to show signs of age, and spots of neglect began to erode the town. In 1960, a major proposal recommended the demolition and redevelopment of Pullman as an industrial park. The people were galvanized to act and form the Pullman Civic Organization. Relying on the skills of its people, the Pullman Civic Organization successfully fought the demolition. They educated themselves about their heritage, established a tour program, and encouraged restoration of homes. Individual owners have returned several hundred houses to near original condition. The resurgence of spirit and redevelopment continues to attract new people to Pullman, who in turn join in the effort. Pullman achieved city, state, and national landmark status entirely through the work of its people. Landmark status helped, but so did the talents, energy, and commitments of many residents. They did more than just work on their own property. For example, several residents made initial repairs to the clock in the administration building. But volunteer hours and limited funds could not manage the stabilization, much less a restoration of the public buildings. Residents volunteered their time and ability to help preserve the Greenstone Church, even though they were not members. They plastered walls, stripped paint, repaired and painted windows. Joint actions by citizens and organizations to accomplish major projects prove that cooperation was necessary to the overall effort. The not-for-profit Historic Pullman Foundation was formed in 1973 as a new and integral partner. It was able to attract resources from well beyond the limits of Pullman. The foundation has been committed to Pullman's preservation and restoration and to the education of the public in regard to Pullman's rich history and distinctive architecture. The foundation's first acquisition was the Masonic Lodge, which had been one of the 4 original boarding houses. The first project was to make the building usable as a community center and to restore the exterior. That demanded a great deal of volunteer time and financial support, and success was achieved. Over the years, the building has served the community for activities which have included a preschool, a teen club, senior club, and community meeting space, and the foundation's offices. Some post-war modernizations seriously changed the face of a number of residential buildings, but saved a neighborhood. More recently, careful restorations have returned buildings to their original character. Many people who were attracted to Pullman by its overall architectural character decided to invest in the community and have both restored exterior and adapted homes to contemporary needs. The variety of sizes and shapes of houses in Pullman make it possible to meet virtually any need or taste without destroying the historic exteriors. The annual house tour attracts thousands of visitors and stimulates further interest in restoration. The tours now provide a source of funds for restoration work in the public building and spaces, and also a source of funding to aid in restoration of residential facade details. Even the smallest architectural details are important to the total composition of Pullman's unique urban design. By 1975, the ravages of time and neglect by a previous owner of the Hotel Florence were all too apparent. The unsympathetic owner decided to sell original interior wood trim, brass hardware, and furnishings. That aroused the entire community and spurred action. The Historic Pullman Foundation secured sufficient resources to purchase the building and began a very costly program of stabilization and restoration. In 1981, the foundation was presented with the prestigious Building of the Year Award by the Chicago Coordinating Conference for Landmarks Preservation in recognition of its ongoing restoration work on the Hotel Florence. Volunteers refurbished and restored interior spaces, including George Pullman's suite. Major grants and contributions were secured for exterior work. Community development block grants from the City of Chicago provided funding for projects which were vital. The main floor of the hotel was reopened for use as a restaurant. It captured the atmosphere in the hotel in its earliest days and generated funds that were needed to maintain the building. Dinners in the Victorian style were held quarterly to recreate the sumptuous and leisurely meals which brought the Hotel Florence early renown. Pullman is not a museum locked in time. It is a living community, healthy, progressive, and vibrant. The Pullman Visitor Center provides accessible interpretive services for the public and for residents, and North Pullman has attracted city landmark status. The State of Illinois Historic Preservation Agency has acquired and restored significant portions of the Pullman factory site following the ravages of a fire and continues to work to restore the Hotel Florence. In 2015, President Barack Obama designated historic Pullman a national monument. Pullman National Monument is an urban national park, and there is no doubt that it will be a model for urban parks in the future. Who saves a landmark? We all do. There's still plenty of work to be done. Join us.